And we are live. Thanks everyone for showing up. This live stream is to give you my first impressions, thoughts, understanding about this new open source algorithm of simulating CRT raster scanning. So what that means is that we will probably very soon have something on Reshade to get this working for gaming. And this works for all displays, okay? If you have an impulse display, you would have to turn, it wouldn't work. On a plasma, it's not gonna work. But if you have a display with BFI or any kind of backlight strobing, you would have to turn that off. So basically, for sample and hold displays, this is going to be a way to simulate the way CRTs look. And we will actually see some trailing behind fast-moving objects. That's gonna be similar to the phosphorus decay, which is pretty cool. And I think this is absolutely amazing. Now, I haven't studied this yet. Somebody told me about it yesterday, but yesterday I was with the family, I didn't have time. And today someone else told me about it. I'm like, okay, that's true. So let me go and check it out. And what I'm gonna do is I will read the code. Okay, I'm gonna read the code and see if we can figure out together how this works. And my main question is, can I get better motion on my displays better than the maximum refresh rate? So basically, at 144 hertz on this, S90D, can I get better motion than that? And if you ask me before this, I would say, no way, that's impossible. BFI cannot give you better motion than the maximum refresh rate. It's not gonna happen. But now that I'm starting to read this, I'm like, well, maybe. Okay, maybe. So let's try to figure that out. Now, let me say hi to the community here. How are you doing? The emulation portal. Thanks for being here, man. Yes, I knew you would cover this. Absolutely, man. I'm gonna try to understand this, and I will tell you all about it. Actually, I have the privilege of having the email of Mark Rejhon, so I can email him if I have a question, but I don't want to bother him until I read everything and I try my best. So after I try my best, and if I have a question, then I have the chance to email. Mark Rejhon is the Blurbusters chief, and he is basically him. And so the two main people who created this is Mark Rejhon and Timothy Lottes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he was also very important in creating this. But we'll try to figure it out first, and then if I have a question, I can ask the chief. Okay, how's it going, Gen X? Everything PS5 Pro. Thanks for being here. I imagine my C4 with a new method giving me 144 hertz BFI without losing brightness. Not gonna happen. Let me explain you. Let me set the expectations, okay? You will lose brightness for sure. There's no way you're not gonna lose brightness. And the reason is to improve the motion clarity, we would be reducing the persistence. Why? Because we are not able to increase the hertz of the display. So we have the same hertz. The only way to improve motion clarity is reducing the persistence. The persistence is the frame visibility time, pixel visibility time. And when you reduce the time, you can see the pixels, you're losing brightness based on the Talbot-Plateau's law. Okay, so based on the Blur-Buster's law, motion clarity is limited by persistence. What that means is that it cannot be better than its persistence. The motion clarity of any display, regardless of the technology, cannot be better than its persistence. So it doesn't matter how good this is, you cannot get better motion with the same refresh rate without losing brightness. It's not going to happen. Now, what this is going to do for sure, I can tell you that right now, without a doubt, this will flicker less to the point where it might not be noticeable for you at all. Okay? So the thing is, for example, this Samsung S90D has BFI. You lose a lot of brightness, that's okay. But the biggest deal breaker is that it flickers. The C4 flickers too, especially at 60. So that's a deal breaker. So you cannot even use it because it's eye searing. If you see that flashing, that flickering, you cannot even use the technology. This technology will reduce the flickering because there are some, it is like it is not a square wave. Let's say it's not perfectly like black and then suddenly the frame is razor sharp, all bright. There is a fading to simulate the phosphorus decay. And thanks to that phosphorus decay, the flickering is less noticeable. So CRTs can look very, very clear at just 60 FPS, 60 hertz, without flickering so much that it is unusable, thanks to the phosphorus decay. Now, the trade-off is that because of that phosphorus decay, you have some trailing artifacts. Okay, not artifacts, it's like trailing behind fast-moving objects. So that's the downside, but you don't want flickering. Flickering is the deal breaker. If you can't perceive flickering, you cannot even use it. Now, flickering perception depends on the person. The Blur-Buster chief clarified that for me. There is no way to say for sure at this sweet spot, nobody's going to notice flickering. We can never say that. Some people will not notice the flickering. So that's where we are right now. Merry Christmas to everyone. Had a great time yesterday with the family. I hope you did too. I have tried to test it as shader, GL in RetroArch, but I cannot see the list of shaders when I start the emulator. So let me open the emulator here for you, because I actually downloaded the emulator. Actually, I'm using the keyboard of the laptop. I have a laptop on my legs to read better, but I actually downloaded this. So let me give you my idea. What I was going to do. I don't have control over the mouse. Let me remove the controller. I'll show you. Look, it is not added yet. They will add it soon. So the RetroArch emulator immediately figured this out and they set it up. And that tells you how easy to integrate this is. So I predict we will have this working on Reshade very soon. Now we are in the holidays. People are not going to be working. There's a lot of smart people out there. They're not going to be working, very hard. It's the holidays. But I bet we will have this working very soon on Reshade, which is awesome. And this is just absolutely amazing. Now, it is not here yet in RetroArch for the release, version, but it will be soon here. So what this is, actually, I'm not familiar with this program at all. I downloaded it because of this. So if you go to settings, and I might post a link in the description of the video when I finish the live stream, so you can go and check this out. But just type in your RetroArch, and you can download this. It's free. So if you go to settings here, video, you go to synchronization, there is an option that is called shader subframes. This option will be, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this will be completely replaced with this new algorithm because the RetroArch creator or whoever replied to this new open source algorithm, he said that this is so much better that he's just going to replace whatever he has. He already did, actually. So I tried to download directly from GitHub, but on GitHub, what I see is the source code. When I go to release versions, it is from June or July. So it's not working. So here's the idea that I had. I recorded a gameplay of this one, and what I wanted to do was to open a video. So open the gameplay recorded video on RetroArch, because I can do that. So here, you can just do this, open a video. So for example, right now, I can use the BFI option that they have, black frame insertion, and I can open, so I can just turn it on, and then I can come here and open a video with a gameplay. So I can see how it looks like with the technology. So we can basically see how good this is for gaming before it even comes out. So I recorded a 60 FPS gameplay video, and I tried the BFI option, and I also tried that that option that I'm talking about. It will be updated, and the problem is you can see out of sync. It looks like out of sync. There's like a line in the middle of the screen. It looks more clear, but it is not the real thing yet, but it will be very soon. And I will test it with a video. As soon as this is released, I will test it. So I think this is awesome, man. So let me keep going through the comments, and then we'll try to read this to try to understand and see what's going on. Everything PS5 process. Also, wasn't it KG Tech that said it wasn't possible to do 120 hertz BFI on newer panels? It is not possible because there is hardware necessary for that. I think on the T-Con board or something, it is not possible. So this is not going to be 120 BFI. Let me make that very clear. Let me get this out of the way. So if you have 120 hertz display, this will work at 60 FPS. That's it. You will not get 120 BFI with this technology. It's not for that, basically. So let me get this out of the way. Let me connect the controller. So let me read some of the comments first before we get into this. Paki says, it was more or less a foregone conclusion that a software solution had to appear. We'll see how it turns out. Yeah. The thing is, what I am intrigued about this is that I want to know what was the breakthrough. Because the Blurbuster's chief, he knows about this, like from very, very long time ago. Like he knows in concept what needs to be done to get that CRT motion clarity. So but then my question is, what was the breakthrough, basically? Let me get this. Actually, let me close the game. So what was the breakthrough is my question. Let me turn off the TV too. I'm gonna be using it too much. So that's what I want to figure out. What was the breakthrough? Because we know for motion clarity, we need lower persistence. If you have 120 hertz, what do you need to get CRT-like motion clarity, for example? You need to lower the persistence 8x. 120 multiplied by 8, that's 960, okay? So CRTs can look like 960 sample and hold at just 60 FPS, 60 hertz. So that's very simple. So how can you lower the persistence? You can flash the entire screen, or you can do the CRT, rolling scan emulation. The thing is, how can you do that if the display is not 960 hertz? So let's say even if we have 960 hertz displays, how can you simulate the phosphorus decay? Because with a 960 hertz display, you can do 1/16. So 60 FPS looks like 960, but you're going to lose a lot of brightness. I mean, you're gonna lose like 16 times the brightness, something like that, based on the Talbot-Plateau's law. And if it's an OLED and you do a square wave, so it is like black frame insertion, let's say, it's gonna look very clear, but it's gonna be unusable. The flickering is gonna be crazy, and it's gonna be super dim. So to reduce the flickering, we need this simulation of the phosphorus decay. And to get more brightness, we also need this new idea, which is it has to do with the gamma, controlling the gamma. And you can see it on the picture actually here. Let me turn this on. We can see it on the site. Let me show you this. I recommend you to check this out on the Blur Busters site. So you can see here, for example, this image. See if you can see that on the video. So this is the 16:1 slow motion CRT beam simulator. So you can see here how the bottom of the pixels, these bottom pixels are a lot brighter than the top. So there is like a fading effect. That is what allows you to reduce the persistence so much and reduce flickering at the same time. If instead of doing this, if you do a square wave, which is basically do the rolling scan like hard, I'm talking about like a rectangular, perfectly bright rectangular line, the flickering is unbearable. It's just gonna be terrible flickering. This is the breakthrough, I think, is probably the calculation for the gamma adjustment. So it makes this possible, basically. But yeah, there's a lot more to it for sure. So I'll try to figure that out. See what's going on. Let me close this. Yeah, so let's try to figure that out. See what's going on. Let me read some of the other comments. Yeah, it's basically what we have so far is the algorithm, and it is open source. So what that means, the beauty of this, thanks to their generosity, because I think they could have called Jensen and say, hey, pay us millions of dollars so you can lock this feature behind NVIDIA for your new GPUs or something like that, and it might be better for them. But thanks to their generosity, they make this new invention open source. So a program like this, ARC, can implement it very fast, very quickly. And not only that, they make this open source, and they say Developers, if you want to implement this in your program, contact us and we will help you. This is just absolutely amazing. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, I cannot say, thanks enough. It's just amazing that they're doing this. It's like these people, they are not only brilliant for inventing this, they also just want everyone to have it. See, so that's just amazing. A file that can be loaded as a shader effect on RetroArch. So you're saying that there is a file that I can load it right now? Probably. I just don't know because I've never used this RetroArch thing. So I don't know how to get it working now. So let me know if you know how to get this working right now on RetroArch. I can actually open the video right now. Like I have a video ready. I just need the update. So I open it and I see the gameplay, how it looks like. Now, one thing, before we start figuring out how this works and what's new and see how good it's gonna be, mainly I want to know if the motion can be better than the maximum refresh rate. I want to know that. It might be. Not from what I've seen so far, but it might be. So, but before we go there, let me say this. Right now, this is so far working on SDR only. But I am almost sure if we get a reshade shader tomorrow with this implemented, I am almost sure that I open the game on SDR with Major Paint the Cactus add-on, and it will work with HDR. And the reason is, the Major Paint the Cactus add-on is just giving you HDR out of SDR. So basically, if you put that shader before the inverse tone mapping or the advanced tone mapping from Pumbo to get the tone mapping necessary so it looks good, it's gonna work because this thing is going to do the calculation and the adjustment for the base SDR, and then we get HDR after that. It's not gonna be a problem at all, I believe, but I might be wrong. So I think this is gonna work even with HDR immediately. Not a problem. So yeah, I have dabbled with emulation for around 2 years now. That's why I asked if it was just a GLSL. I don't know what that is. RetroArch ran great on my Philips TV and currently my iPhone. Yeah, this thing works for everything. I've never used that. But I don't know what happens to my RetroArch that when I enter the shaders menu, I don't get any in the list, even using GL as render. Like I have no idea. Like I've never used this tool. Never heard of BFI or any Flickr solution existing. This is gonna be exciting to see, absolutely. If it is great and Ariel reacts to this, as he reacted to Frame Gen back when it launched, I'm buying a PC. Yeah, it's gonna be better than BFI for sure. There was some work open for testing on GitHub a few years ago, but it looks like they are getting serious now. Yeah, the main in 2022, the first big step was published by Mark Rejhon. I will read that. I had to install my own shaders. Some cheap overlays work out of the box, but not real shaders when I tested that. Okay, so let's see. C1 55-inch for desktop. And a Panasonic Plasma for movies. Let's see. I have always wanted to try out 120 BFI. Plasma still looks awesome. Yeah, Plasma is still great. This is not gonna work on Plasma TVs though. This is gonna be only for sample and hold. So let me, I think we have a lot of comments. Let me see if I can start figuring this out so I can share more. Plasma is still good. Behind you, a monster. Be careful. A few days ago, Ariel didn't believe that BF5 could be emulated by software. BF5 can be emulated by software. What I said is that I don't believe you can get better motion than the maximum refresh rate. BF5, of course, can be emulated by software. All you're doing is inserting a black frame. But this is not BF5. This is better than BF5. It's more complex. It's not only just inserting a black frame. Well, thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much, everyone. Who is that bug behind you? Yeah, I was high on life. Emulation wins again. Panasonic. I'm trying to go fast through the comments. Merry Christmas to everyone. See if we can figure this out. If they improve the motion clarity of OLEDs, they will be very good, better than plasma. Yeah, they're saying this is gonna work very good on OLEDs, of course, because of the gray to gray. The OLEDs are fantastic for this thing, for this technology. Actually, they are saying that with 480 hertz OLEDs, this technology looks absolutely insane. So they have tested that already. We just need to see it implemented. Yeah, plasmas also have trailing artifacts, but this will give you trailing artifacts on OLEDs by design, because it is simulating the phosphorus decay of the CRT, and that is necessary to reduce the flickering perception. If you do a square wave, it's going to look more clear, a lot more clear, actually. Not more clear. It is going to look cleaner. It's going to look a lot more clean, less trailing artifacts. For example, the LG C1 with the 120 OLED Motion Pro High does something like this. And it is closer to a square wave. And because of that, we have no trailing artifacts at all. It looks clean, perfectly clean. This will not look perfectly clean, but it will look clear. So basically, the trade-off of this method is less flickering at lower hertz, lower frame rate, so 60, for example. You get less flickering with better motion, but it is not going to be as clean. For example, the LG CX looks fairly clear at just 60 FPS, but the flickering is very noticeable because it is closer to a square wave. If the LG CX instead was simulating the phosphorus decay of a CRT, it might not look like flickering at all for most people. That's the key here. So yeah, that's the expectation. This will not be perfectly clean no matter what. Even if we have a 960 hertz OLED and we go from 60 to 1 millisecond of persistence, with this technology, it's not going to be perfectly clean. So with 960 frames per second sample on hold, it will be clean, perfectly clean with an OLED, but not with this. So that's from what I understand so far, but I'll read the code. Alexor says, important to remember that this requires at least 240 hertz to work well. In my opinion, also, software BFI has a problem with timing. Even if a single frame is dropped, you get flickering. Okay, yeah, I haven't tried any software BFI solution. Do you know if there's a reshade shader with software BFI that you can use on the games. That would be interesting to test. But yeah, they are saying definitely the higher the refresh rate, the better. But they say this will work for 120 hertz. And not only that, it actually works for 144 hertz, which is interesting. So this technology doesn't require perfect integers, which is very interesting. But they do say that it is better if you do it with perfect integers. So 60, 120, or 240, but it works with 144, which is great. Very interesting. So I'll read the whole thing and see if we can figure it out. It doesn't work for me. I am familiar with RA, but the file isn't recognized. Also, you're trying to load the update and it's not working. Yeah, let me know if you figured out a way to make it work now. I'll try it immediately. Bruno says, good idea about manufacturers, but it is almost impossible that they add a CRT-like mode. I believe they will, man. With this thing being open source, actually, I'll read it, but actually they say it's open source. You can profit. You can charge money for it. You can implement something like this on your monitor and charge for it. So basically, these monitors that are coming out, 240 hertz OLEDs with a lazy BFI, like, only from 120 to 240, inserting black frames, that's not great, especially for OLEDs, because it's not efficient. You lose more brightness and it doesn't improve clarity as much. For these monitors, if they implement this, algorithm to simulate the phosphorus decay, like natively, that would be awesome. And I believe they will, man. I don't see why not. It's a no-brainer. I mean, imagine you can advertise your monitor as, having great motion at any frame rate. They can implement this at any frame rates from 60, 80, 75, whatever. That would be great. Yeah, 120 works. It works, but I wouldn't say well. You can only do 8 milliseconds, with 120 hertz, and you don't have enough refresh cycles to truly simulate sub-refresh behavior. Yeah, it's not gonna be great. Now, here's the thing. Maybe, I'm not sure, actually. When you go to the site, they give you some examples. Let me actually look at that. They give you some examples. Here, you have this one, for example. I can open this one, real-time simulation of 60. Actually, I have 144 right now, and it is working. So let me get full screen here. So this one, for example, I have 144 hertz right now, but this is still working. And it's flickering on camera. So you can see this one is flickering, this one is not. This one is sample on hold. And it improves the motion big time. And the brightness loss is not very big, actually. And yeah, let me remove it so you don't get a headache by looking at this. But the thing is, the motion is greatly improved. Not greatly, but it's definitely improved and double. The brightness loss is not as big, and I think it's very good. It's working actually at 144. The thing is, what I wonder is if they can actually reduce the persistence below the refresh rate. It might be possible. I'll try to go through this and read it. But so far, based on in this article, they are telling you 60 hertz on your 60 FPS on your 120 hertz display, you get 50% blur reduction. So they are not claiming this can do better than that. But I don't know. I think it might, depending on, because there's an adjustment component that they are talking about here that you can actually trade brightness for motion. So it might be possible. Let's see. Ideally, you want 16:1, yeah, which would be 960 hertz. Yeah, that would be ideal. A 960 hertz OLED, it would be the perfect display for that. But now the thing is, yeah, I think, yeah, that's perfect. That's the goal, but we don't have that yet, of course. But they're saying at 480 hertz OLEDs right now, it is awesome. Let's see when we have more hertz. Apparently it doesn't work for mini LEDs. Yeah, they're saying that, well, with mini LEDs, the backlight is lagging behind and it's not looking very good. It works for LCDs, but OLEDs right now are the best for this technology. Now the thing is, there are LCD monitors that have amazing backlight strobing. We have now this NVIDIA, what's the name of that? Pulsar display, which is an LCD that it has variable refresh rate with the backlight strobing, and it is very clear. It is more clear than a CRT. So I think the most exciting thing about this technology is that you can get that working on your OLED, even on your big TV. So hopefully these OLED TVs become bigger next year. So we can bigger, not like higher refresh rate, 240 hertz. Hopefully we can get 240 hertz on these bigger TVs, because the bigger the better. So that'll be great. How is this functionally different than LG C1 rolling scan BFI? Well, the C1 can lower the persistence below the maximum refresh rate. So this technology might not be able to do that. That's what I want to find out, basically. In my testing, the LG C1 using 120 OLED Motion Pro High lowers the persistence from 32 to 38%. So you get, like, based on my testing, you get like 3.2 milliseconds of persistence. That's pretty good. That's like 312 like sample on hold. So as we don't have a 312 big OLED TV yet, not that I know of. So that is great. Wait, so this will not be possible for my C4 at 144 hertz? Yes, it will be possible, but the frame rate is not for 144 frames per second, for 60 or maybe 72. So 72 FPS, you can go up to 144 like motion clarity. So you can double the motion, but it's not gonna work at 144 frames per second because your display cannot double the hertz. We'll try to figure it out once I'm reading the paper. But yeah, you will. So far, from my understanding, you cannot get better than the maximum refresh rate. And actually, that's what you see here. The examples that they have here are clear. They're telling you can click here from 60 to 120, 50% improvement. If you have a 240 hertz display, you can improve it up to 75%. So you're getting 60 FPS and it looks like 240. That's the promise right now from what I see here. And if you have a 480 hertz display, from 60 to 480. So that's up to 83% blur reduction. But that's because the display can refresh higher. So if your FPS is lower, because obvious reasons, you cannot run at 480 frames per second every single game. If you could, you wouldn't want to use this at all. This technology is for content that is either locked to 60 or locked to a lower frame rate than your display, or because you cannot get the maximum frame rate to deliver to your display. It's simple. If you can get 480 frames per second with the highest quality, there's no reason to use this at all. Why would you lose brightness and flicker a little bit for no reason? There's no benefits on using this. KM has a brightness compensation and no flicker. I don't know what do you mean KM? I'm not sure what you're talking about. It is not beating the C1, but it can be the next best thing for OLED monitors. There's 480 hertz ones already. Yeah, and there's gonna be like a 520 hertz QD OLED 1440p monitor soon. I think it's from Philips, if I remember correctly. We need OLED CRT TVs now. The next idea is a trade-off. You have higher MPRT with brighter colors. The new idea is a trade-off. You have higher MPRT with brighter colors. So you're saying that it might not go lower than the refresh rate, but it can go higher, but being brighter. That makes sense. That's what I believe you're trying to imply. So yeah, unfortunately, that might be the case. So basically, if there is an offset setting with for example, once we get the reshade shader to get this working, if we have settings to trade off brightness for motion, most likely you can get it brighter, but not better. So basically, the dimmest option would give you the lowest persistence that your display has. For example, 120 hertz, you cannot get less than 8 milliseconds of persistence. 240 hertz, you cannot get lower than 4 milliseconds of persistence. And 480, 2 milliseconds of persistence. So what does that mean? 2 milliseconds of persistence. That means 2 pixels of motion blur when moving at 1000 pixels per second, considering ideal gray to gray, which is the case with OLEDs. OLEDs closely follow the blur busters law because of their gray to gray. Okay. So yeah, so what that means is 2 milliseconds of persistence is equal to 2 pixels of motion blur when moving at 1000 pixels per second. That means that when you open the UFO test, so let's say I open here the UFO test. I'm missing the keyboard from the laptop. Okay, UFO test. There it is. So when we open the UFO test, we have the speed at 960 pixels per second. So I'm gonna have just one. So if you have a 480 hertz OLED at this 960 pixels per second speed, you will see 2 pixels of motion blur, which basically means, looking at this image, let me pause the image. Looking at this image, let me make it bigger here. By the way, when we are doing this testing, we want 0. We don't want any zoom on the browser. We want 100% scaling, no zoom on the browser. But when doing this test, you see that UFO is too small. Let's see if I can make it bigger here. Yeah, it's too big. I cannot even see to. So the thing is, see if we have the top here. Yeah, I cannot see. So the thing is, with 2 milliseconds of persistence, if you open the UFO test, you will be able to see the alien pupils, but they will be blurry. That's the way to check. So with a 480 hertz OLED, you open the UFO test at the default speed, 960 pixels per second, and you will be able to distinguish, you will be able to see the alien eyes, but they will be a little bit blurry. With 1 milliseconds of persistence, which would be a 960 hertz OLED, the alien pupils will be perfectly sharp, considered perfectly sharp, perfectly clear, let's say, at a normal viewing distance, which is 1 pixel of motion blur, because it is not necessary basically to have less than 1 pixel of motion blur at a normal viewing distance, because you're not supposed to see 1 pixel apart from the other, because you're not close enough to a screen. So 1 pixel of motion blur means half a pixel of motion blur at the leading edge and half a pixel of motion blur at the trailing edge. That amount of motion blur is considered to be ideal at a normal viewing distance. Okay, I wouldn't call that perfect, but that is considered ideal. So that's what we're talking about here. So what I was saying is, with this technology, if we have a way to trade off brightness, so more brightness for a little bit less motion clarity, is so we get worse motion clarity than the maximum refresh rate, but brighter. So basically, you have a 480 hertz OLED, you turn this on at 60 FPS, and you're like, yeah, it looks very clear. It looks like a CRT, but it's too dark. I want it a little bit brighter. So if you increase that offset, you get a brighter, but now it's not as clear, but it might still be clear enough. You might, make it look like 300, for example. Instead of 480, maybe you make it look like 320 or 360, and that gives you that bit much, a little bit much more brightness. You're happier with that. But maybe you cannot trade off even more brightness to get it even clearer, because you cannot get it clearer than the maximum refresh rate. That's most likely going to be the case, but I'm still hopeful. I need to read the thing to see if we can actually get it better. Apparently, there is an issue implementing it with reshade. What issue? Yeah, there's always gonna be challenges for sure. Let's see what the issue is. NVIDIA are doing their own thing for BFI anyway, with VRR, I think. Yeah, but NVIDIA, the thing is, NVIDIA is awesome. They invented this pulsar, NVIDIA pulsar, VRR and BFI at the same time. It works amazing. We have to buy a monitor for that. NVIDIA is not going to invent something that works for every monitor, every GPU, open source, free. They will never do that. If they invent something, they will make you pay for it. That's the thing. So it's not going to work in your existing TV or monitor. But yeah, I believe NVIDIA with this new 50 series is going to at least 4x the frame generation, 3x and 4x frame generation with DLSS 4. And I hope they add asynchronous reprojection. Okay, because the reason why I want to know if this new thing can give me better motion than my 144 hertz is because if it doesn't, then I much rather use Game Motion Plus on my TV or NVIDIA frame generation. Why? Because it's brighter. I can get full HDR brightness. So yeah, why would I lose brightness if it doesn't look more clear? It would be cleaner if it doesn't have the motion interpolation artifacts. But on the other hand, it's gonna have a little bit of trailing. So there's no perfect option, basically. Soft phosphorus fade and rolling scan, less eye strain at same hertz than BFI or strobe mode. Variable per pixel MPRT. Timothy Lottes brightness redistribution algorithm. Yes. Yes to all of that. My channel is doing poorly last days. My stats are going down. That's how it goes, man. It goes up and down. That's just the way it is. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing your thing. I think those are the two biggest benefits. Yes. Something like this needs to be implemented on the display's scaler, in my opinion. You cannot reliably time 960 Hz in software on Windows, especially while your system is under heavy load. Yeah, maybe stuttering concerns or something like that. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, I totally agree. The display can always do it better. The thing is, this display companies, they just don't care at all. Like they are releasing just lazy BFI implementations, if any. And it's just crazy because with these new OLEDs, 240, 480 hertz, we could have awesome, rolling, like what the C1 does, at the very least, what the LG C1 does. It would be awesome. They don't do it. I don't know why. They could advertise that for competitive multiplayer. It's just a no-brainer in my opinion, but they don't do it. So you're saying that the file is on GitHub? Yeah, I see the file on GitHub. It's right here. I searched for the GitHub file and I downloaded the code. The thing is, the RetroArch, the latest version available for the whole thing, is from June 4. And what I see available is the source code. Like the update that I see is, see if I can, I think I closed it already. It's this one. And actually they have the whole thing explained here. They implemented that. And they have all the explanation here with the source code and everything. But I don't see a way to make it work right now. It's just I've never used this RetroArch thing. Any software BFI cannot get motion clarity better than your max hertz. That's what I think. That's what I think. That's what I've always say. People have asked me about this RetroThink device, and I'm like, I'm not interested in that at all because my TV can do BFI. Why would I get an external device? You cannot get lower persistence than your maximum refresh rate with an external device or with software. But that's what I thought. Maybe this thing can. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure anymore because I don't know what this thing is doing yet. I have to read it. The idea is that we can have clarity of movement at 60 FPS without the need to go to 480 FPS. Yes, but you need a 480 hertz display. That's the thing. That's what I believe right now. You misunderstood what I was trying to say. Okay, BFI can be done with a special K. I've never tried it. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I've never tried that. So what you're saying is that I cannot use 144 hertz on my LG C4 and get better motion clarity or perception using this new trick. And I must be inside 60 hertz container for it to work. So what I'm saying is, with this technology, you can at least get the same clarity at lower frame rates as you would get at your maximum frame rate, which is 144 frames. For that, you would need it like at 60 or 72 FPS. So with that, so basically because your PC is not powerful enough to give you 144, or maybe it is, but you want more quality, you want a higher resolution, you want to push higher graphical fidelity, then this thing can do the job to still give you the clarity. The thing is, 144 hertz, even with an OLED, is not very clear. It is not clear. It's okay, but it's not great. It doesn't give you great motion clarity. The name of the emulator is RetroArch. Is this one. I've never used this before, and it works on, actually, this emulator works in all the operating systems and even on the phones, even for Android and iOS. You can do a lot of things with this. I've never used it. So this is it, RetroArch. That's what it is. Let me close it. I understand what you mean is that we could have the need to draw 480 FPS to have the same clarity movement of 480 hertz. Yeah, exactly. I find the square wave BFI is completely fine for flickering, but I'm not flicker sensitive. The best way to reduce harsh flickering is simply having a lower average brightness and a smaller screen. Yes, that helps. But definitely, any of these monitor or TV companies that implement a motion blur reduction technology, flickering, basically reducing the persistence, they have to add settings to fine tune the flickering. And the reason for that is, if it is true that everyone's flickering perception is different, then the sweet spot for each individual is gonna be different. So you need to have settings. So it would be awesome if the LG C1 or CX, they would have an option to increase the brightness, lower the flickering, and get the motion clarity reduced, or improve the motion clarity, more flickering and less brightness. So you can fine tune that to your liking. And of course, the Blur Buster chief knows that that's the best way, and that's why when he worked on a monitor, this ViewSonic, he partner with them or show them, or whatever the partnership was. That monitor actually has settings to fine tune the width of the pulse. So I think that's mandatory for any monitor company that wants to implement flickering technology. That's a must. You have to include settings to tweak, to fine tune the flickering, because it's not for everyone, and some people might need to lower the flickering, even if it costs motion clarity. Yeah, CX is dark. Yeah, it's darker. It's very clear, but it flickers because it's a square. It's closer to a square wave. Not perfectly square, but it is closer to that. So that's not what the CRT does. Motion clarity isn't the whole story, though. 60 FPS with 1 millisecond is still choppy due to stroboscopic artifacts. Yeah, of course, the real thing is always better. If you can get 960 or 1,000 frames per second, 1,000 hertz, that's gonna be better. But the thing is, we get the best we can. And a stroboscopic, to completely eliminate the stroboscopic effects of finite refresh rate or something like that, you need kilohertz. So you need like 16,000 frames per second or something like that. So I mean, to achieve retina levels of clarity, it's insane. We're far from getting there. So yeah, I mean, we get the best we can, basically. Real frame rates will always be better due to that. Yeah, of course. The real thing is always better, and not to mention HDR. I mean, HDR You need brute force sample and hold for the best picture quality. That's clear. No question about that. But yeah, for legacy content at 60 FPS is great. Is 60 FPS on a CRT is choppy for non-eye tracked motion. Interesting. Yeah, my 50 hertz CRT looks smooth. Yeah, oh man, 50 hertz CRT. If that doesn't flicker like crazy, I would be surprised. But I've never seen a 50 hertz CRT. I mean, you can lower the. I'm not sure I can lower mine to 50. The flickering should be noticeable. On a CRT from 120, you don't notice any more smoothness of movement. Yeah, for CRTs, you increase the hertz just to reduce flickering, and that's it, because the input lag was already great and the motion too. So. But yeah, you definitely feel the improvement still. CRT flickers is also very noticeable at 60. At the time flicker on CRT starts to not be noticeable above 72 hertz. Special K can do software BFI. Yeah, I have to try that. I've never tried it. Desktop BFI is a jank software that does not work. That does work already. Is that the name? Desktop BFI. I've never tried that. False, you need thousands of hertz to truly eliminate the gaps between the frames. Yeah, we need kilohertz, but man, we're trying to get 120. Of course, the higher the better, but I think we are still far away from that. Just think about just the limitations of bandwidth, and even with DSC, how many frames can you deliver to a display today? We're not even close to that. But we will get to 1,000 hertz at least very soon. So you have a 480 hertz OLED. Well, this technology is gonna work very well there. So even at 480 hertz, you can see that because you know what you're looking for. Then, if you know what you're looking for, you can see the defects. Yeah. So 60 hertz CRT is not smooth for fixed gaze. So what he's talking about is he's saying the CRT at 60 hertz, 60 FPS. If you eye track an object, it looks clear. But if you keep your eyes on the same place and the background is moving, because the frame rate is not high enough, it will still look like this. It will still look. It's not gonna look perfect because there's a gap in between frames. But to notice that issue, you really need to know what you're looking for. It's not something that people will easily notice unless you explain them, hey, you have to look at this and this way, and then you will see the defect. And maybe have that side by side with a sample and hold brute force 1000 hertz display, 1000 FPS, and then you can you see the difference? Then maybe people can see that difference. But I'm okay with at least getting eye track things that I track clear. I would be happy with that at least. Is there a shortcut you can put on the Magic Remote on LG OLEDs to put TV instantly into sleep mode or screen off mode instead of having to go to settings? Not that I know of. I don't know. Try a mouse locked shooter and spin the camera around on a 60 hertz CRT, and you'll see it's chopped up frames. So you're saying you're looking at the center of the scope, and then you spin the camera and focus on your peripheral view, how the background looks he's saying that 60 hertz CRT will still look choppy. Interesting, because of the frame rate is too low. Interesting. Then try 480 hertz display or 240, and you'll see the difference. Thanks for sharing that. 60 FPS is enough to see a smooth image. What we need is no motion blur persistence. No, what he's trying to explain is perfectly valid. I think he's right. I don't see it as an issue because the thing is, we're so far away with a with a 120 hertz OLED. We are so far away to 1 millisecond of persistence. I mean, we need 8 times better motion still than that detail that he's talking about. He has a 480 hertz OLED. So yeah, that's next level stuff. But yeah, we need brute force sample and hold, that's for sure. But this is exciting still. You can put the quick access on the PS5. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Is it only smooth when you're eye tracking something? Okay, let's see. Okay, let's try to jump from that. You're just having a conversation about that. Let me jump. See if we can get closer to the end, and then I'll try to read the article. You can download this right now. Maybe you can. I just don't know how to do it. I downloaded the program. It's right here, this RetroArch program, and the source code is already in GitHub, but I don't know how to make it work right now. I don't know. So if someone knows, drop that in the comments so I can try it out. Because what I do, this is something you can try to. As soon as we have this working, you can record gameplay 60 FPS and open that video with RetroArch. That's it. You can see how it looks like immediately. You don't have to wait for a reshape implementation to work. All you have to do is record your 60 FPS gameplay, open RetroArch, come here to main, load the content. So you search where the video is, and then you come here to settings, video, synchronization, and this is what you have to use: shader subframes. That's what you have to do to use. Maybe they will change the name of this setting, or they will have extra tweakings for that. And then all you have to do is just open the video. Go to your videos and open it. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So I cannot wait for this to be updated so I can actually give this a try. I watched the 120 hertz on my mini LED, and I have a VA panel, which is bad for motion. That test had a noticeable difference in clarity. Holy. Yeah, it is more clear. And the thing is, the brightness loss is not very big. The brightness loss is okay. And that's one thing I like a lot about this. They are focused also on the gamma, calculation. One problem that I see with the monitors, and not all of them, I mean, I haven't tested the backlight strobing, LCD-based monitors that have very good strobing. I have not tested those. But for the C1 and these TVs, you have BFI or rolling scan simulation with the C1. Not simulation, similar to what the CRT does. But then the gamma is not adjusted to look like if it was not turned on. And I think that is a must. These display companies need to include the feature, but make it look good. Because most people are going to turn it on. Oh, it looks dimmer now, and it's crushing blacks. and the colors are different, and so people are not going to like it. So then the technology is earning a bad reputation because of lazy implementations. If they implement a very good motion blur reduction technology that looks good, yes, you're going to lose brightness. That's okay. But the gamma looks still correct. Basically, accuracy. I want some accuracy, at least on SDR. That's not a lot to ask. I think that's reasonable to ask some accuracy. When you use the technology, even if you lose some brightness, you should be able to see at least all the shadow detail, and the colors should be still fairly accurate. And unfortunately, that's not what you see. So that's why people don't use it. And then the reviewers, when they talk about the technology, they tell you, yeah, but it flickers. I would not recommend even trying it. So it's not good. So yeah, I would recommend that everyone to read the Blurbusters law. I've shared that article many times. You're already doing a live about it. Yes. Yeah, this was yesterday. This is yesterday's news. Yeah, this one is another good one. Stroboscopic effects of finite frame rates, finite frame rate displays. Yeah, I've read those too. We need a technology that doesn't need more frame rate to see the frames clearly, even if they are not enough. Yeah, that's not possible. That's the thing. Yeah, this when it comes to motion clarity, when you read these articles at the Blurbusters, this is scientific. Like when they tell you, regardless of the display technology, it's like this is a law. It's just the way it works, and it is scientific. Like there is not going to be any breakthrough to make 60 FPS look like 1000 without losing any brightness. Like it's not gonna happen unless the display, gets even brighter. So, but everything considered equal, you will lose brightness to improve motion, and there's no way around that. And the motion is gonna be better with brute force, sample and hold. It's the future. Uh, uh, yeah, there's no shortcuts for retina level. We need brute force, a lot of frames. At 480 hertz, you start to see perceived motion blur for really fast motion instead of chop up frames. Dan says, hey Ariel, speaking of CRTs, have you compared your CRT to your QD OLED yet? Does it look similar in terms of depth? So I have the CRT close, actually. I might do a video about that. The thing is, it's not even close. When it comes to picture quality, forget about it. The CRT is going to look monochrome in comparison. It's just the difference is gigantic. CRT is going to be a lot more clear, that's for sure. But it's not even close when it comes to the picture quality. I mean, it's like on camera, I might have to reduce the brightness of the QD OLED to the minimum, so my camera can capture them at the same time. Otherwise, the CRT is not going to be visible on camera with the brightness than these QD OLEDs have. Darker colors having higher clarity is actually ideal because outlines of objects are usually darker. Sharp outlines look better. Yes, the Blurbusters chief actually told me that some plasmas, when you lower the brightness, they look more clear, or in general. I don't remember why. It's just the inherent to the technology. But the thing is, you want full HDR brightness for the best quality. And brute force full HDR brightness should look clear. Watch Mufasa in the cinema. 24p was so blurry in motion so that the objects had a duplicate halo around. 24p and film grain are trash. I'm going to make a video about that, man. It's just, in my opinion, the movie industry is so wrong. Okay, it's nonsense, especially with these CGI movies. Why would you limit the frame rate like that? It doesn't make any sense. It's just nonsense. And film grain is a defect. Is that simple? It's a defect. Why would you have a clean, crystal clear picture and add noise to it to simulate a defect from an old technology because it has become tradition? That doesn't make any sense. It's just absolute nonsense, in my opinion. Dry Style says, hello and Merry Christmas. If I understand correctly, it needs to be implemented in shaders like Reno DX to work. So what I'm hoping for is, it doesn't need to be Reno DX, whichever implements this on Reshape, Lilium or whoever. It just needs to be implemented, on Reshape. Maybe there's more to it, but I am expecting Reshape to have this algorithm already pretty soon. Maybe next week, we don't know, but it's the holidays, so I don't think people are working right now. 24 FPS is visually uncomfortable, and hardly anyone is willing to admit it. It is, you see, this purist, they call themselves purists. They don't want anything to change. Because 24 FPS film grain and all of that is tradition, or it has become a standard or something like that, they don't want to change that. They think that is part of the art. In my opinion, there is no artistic intention in making something worse. So it's like, for example, in music, the technique to play the guitar, for example, is what I do. It has improved a lot. So in the past, guitarists used to play slower. Okay. So why would you don't play fast? Because traditionally everyone used to play this at this tempo. Then that's how you have to play it on the guitar. That makes no sense, because when you hear the piano version, the pianist is flying. And see, so why would you keep a limitation? Because a limitation of the past, because it has become tradition or standard. That doesn't make any sense, man. Any sense. It's like, why are they adding chromatic aberration to the games? That is a defect, not a feature. There's no artistic intent, in my opinion. If you add noise and defects to the clarity of your movie or game, you're damaging the quality of the product, period. I understand 24 or 30 FPS if it is a limitation that you cannot overcome. For example, this live stream is 30 FPS. There's nothing I can do about that. That's just the way this platform that I'm using is set up. But if I could, I would make it 60 or more, 120 if it was possible, because it would be better. Now, I understand some people argue for movies, 24 FPS is better for the actors because it's easier to make it more believable, or it's so if it looks fake. So basically the actor has an easier time of being more convincing with a lower frame rate. I understand that because I have recorded myself at 30 frame rate, 30 FPS, and I can tell you that I feel, a lot easier, a lot more comfortable, because you cannot see well. But when you record yourself at a higher frame rate, people can more easily notice if you are being honest and if what you're saying is truth, just by looking at your eyes. I understand actors not feeling very comfortable, being recorded at a higher frame rate. They just need to improve their acting. If they look fake at a higher frame rate, they just need to do it better. It's that simple. That's my take on that. Just to blur things so you don't notice they are fake makes no sense. It's like having a fighting scene on a movie that you can barely see. It's like the camera is moving like you don't see anything. And on top of that, it's 24 frames per second. They are not fighters, they are actors. So I understand if they cannot do a very good fighting scene, we'll just hire fighters. If you hire UFC fighters, they will do a very good fighting scene. So, but at a higher frame rate, it will be more clear if they are faking it. So I understand that component. If you want to make an actor look like if he was a fighter, even when he's very bad actually at fighting, a lower frame rate can help you. But it's just a limitation. It's not better. Yeah. If they want to film at 24 FPS, they have to stick with a fixed camera and hard cuts. Yeah. 24 FPS sucks. In the Blurbusters website, they mentioned the issue with implementing it in Reshade. So where is that on the main article? For software implementation. Yeah, but here's the thing. Yeah, they're saying we look forward to seeing software and hardware developers implement this algorithm as an optional motion blur reduction that is superior to black frame insertion, such as emulators, example RetroArch, or video processor devices like RetroTink 4K, whom I helped with the BFI addition. So basically, he's saying he already helped RetroTink to add the BFI, and he will help them to add this technology. So game engines also that add an optional low motion blur setting, fast scrollers. I think all game engines need to add this. Unreal Engine should definitely add this, but they have to fix the stuttering first, because stuttering is especially noticeable when you have clear motion. So yeah, display firmwares to add an optional CRT emulation mode. That would be awesome. Can you imagine that they do a firmware update on your TV and suddenly you have a CRT? Not a CRT, but much better motion option. Definitely better than this BFI we have on the Samsung QD OLEDs. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what the issue with the reshade implementation is. I'm sure there's always challenges. There are always challenges, but I don't see here any comments on that. So maybe let me know where do you read that it was a problem. 120 FPS is very smooth. Oh yeah, it's not great, man. It's not great. It's better than 60, that's for sure. But when you pan the camera with an analog stick, especially if you're using a controller, 120, it's not great. We need more frames. Yeah, if you compare that to 480, there's no way. You go back to that, and yeah, there's no way. it's difficult to. Oh, so yeah, you're saying 120 FPS and 1 millisecond of persistence. Yeah, I think that would be great. That would be awesome. 24 FPS is only choppy without even cadence, like playing it on 60 hertz container. Yeah, I'm sorry, man, but 24 FPS is the thing is it stutters. Like, it's not my opinion. 24 or even 30 FPS is not high enough frame rate for it to have motion blur. It stutters. And when 24 or 30 FPS looks like this. When you add more frames, that stutter, the length of that stutter becomes smaller, so it becomes motion blur. So even if you had low persistence, 24 FPS, it will still look bad. There's no way to get rid of that stutter. It's just bad, man. It doesn't matter how perfect is the frame cadence. Of course, you can have it even worse if the frame pace is bad, but it's not great. They have these neural rendering and next-gen DLSS already with 50 series to force people to upgrade, of course. Thing with an AMD RDNA 4. Same thing with AMD. Okay. Yeah, I read the neural rendering thing, and it's a good idea. It's basically, this neural rendering thing is basically to increase the quality of the assets. That's great. Better looking textures and all of that. But I can definitely see Jensen already making an excuse to still give you an 8 gigabyte GPU. Basically, he's gonna tell you you no longer need higher VRAM, because with this compression, I'm gonna show you the 5060 using less VRAM and giving you higher quality, textures and all of that. So yeah, they're going to use that as an excuse to force people to upgrade and to force people to buy lower VRAM GPUs. Yeah, I think you're right, man. The thing is, I'm glad you are here and you understand all this stuff. This is not easy to understand. What my goal here on this live stream, I'm not sure if I'm gonna end up doing it. It was to read the whole thing. Thing is, I like to interact with you better. But I was planning to read this thing and try to figure it out here in real time, because I haven't read the whole thing. Motion clarity is not very easy to understand. And I read the Blurbusters law many times, and I did like 6 videos without fully understanding it. And the Blurbusters chief, he's like, okay, I have to explain this YouTuber how it works so he can actually spread good information, because he doesn't understand. And he was kind enough to reach out and answer my questions, and then I understood the Blurbusters law better. And actually, I think he's always updating the article, so I'm not saying it was because of me, but based on my feedback, he might have changed some things to make it more clear. And I think the main thing that I wanted to be more clear is that motion clarity is limited by persistence, meaning that it cannot be better than the maximum. It cannot be better than the persistence of the display, regardless of technology or gray to gray or any other factors. So what that means is that if the display has 2 milliseconds of persistence, you cannot get below 2 pixels of motion blur when moving at 1000 pixels per second. And when I read, that information was there already, but the way it was there, I couldn't understand it clear like that. So yeah, I think I understand a little bit better now, but still there's a lot to to learn. And let me tell you, Mark Rejhon, the Blurbusters chief, he knows so much. That's why, and I am thinking it and trying before I ask him any questions, I have to make sure I do my homework, because he when he answers a question, he knows so much and he throws so much at you that you feel like you should have studied a lot more before you ask him a question. So yeah, he knows. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of things that he throws at you. He's just a genius. I have gone between 60 and 300 hertz and not seen any shoppiness. At least 50% of motion is not eye track. You could have the lowest persistence in the world, but 120 hertz is still going to be choppier for fixed gaze motion than 480 hertz. I had a CRT 160 hertz and from 120 FPS, 120 hertz, and I didn't notice any more smoothness of movement. Yeah, the thing is, for you to notice what he's trying to explain, you need to specifically look for it, basically. So he gave you a clue. Try to move the camera, like spin the camera around smoothly. Maybe use an analog stick. Focus on the center. So look at the center and then try to analyze your peripheral view, the background, and try to compare that smoothness. So things that you're not eye tracking. So if it's just an object that you're eye tracking, it's going to look clear. But with less frames, things that you are not eye tracking are going to look choppier than with the real thing, sample and hold, brute force, higher frame rate. People say LG has more 3D depth and better motion handling in movies than Samsung. Do you agree? So I mean, my C1 is not better than these Samsung TVs, like in motion. So LG might have better motion interpolation for movies. But this 3D depth argument, I think that is maybe the screen coating, because LG looks more black, and most people watch their TVs with some lights or when they're looking at it on the store, and having deeper blacks, because the QD OLED has raised blacks under lighting conditions. Having deeper blacks is gonna give you that 3D depth that people talk about. That's it. In a dark room, I don't think you would see that difference. Although a QD OLED screen doesn't look as black, even on a dark room. For example, I was doing a test where you had 3 circular, very bright shapes that go bigger and smaller to test blooming, a test pattern to test blooming. And the rest of the screen was supposed to be black. And with the QD OLED, it's not black. When you have a very bright object on the screen, it's lighting up the room, the screen doesn't look black. As soon as you have enough light to see the screen, it doesn't look black. So non-MLA LG, the G4 has raised blacks. It's a lot less though, so it might be better in that regard. But that's the 3D like depth that people talk about. I think that's what they are referring to. That's why they see it. So you mean our eyes are able to distinguish detail from a moving object are up to 480 FPS? Yeah, and even more. So how can you know what is your maximum eye tracking speed? So basically, what would be the maximum refresh rate that you would need? So at your maximum eye tracking speed, you have 1 pixel of motion blur. I think most people can easily eye track an object, and this depends on the screen size a lot. But most people are going to be able to eye track an object that takes half a second to go from left to right. That's not very fast, especially look at this big screen, 65-inch screen. Half a second, that's like this. For example, here on camera, it's like this, that fast. You can eye track that, no problem. Look, of course, this is like 30 FPS. It's going to be a pain to eye track that. So let's say that twice as fast is your limit. So instead of this, it will be this. Like, let's say this is your limit. You can eye track that, for example. You would need 4,000 hertz. So if an object takes 0.25 milliseconds to go from left to right, you would need 4,000 hertz, 4,000 frames per second. So that's 10 times more than 480. Oh, not 10 times. I mean, less, of course, less, because 80. 4,000. So that's a lot. Okay, that's a lot. And of course, I'm talking about an object that takes that long in a 4K screen. So 3840, 3,840 pixels. Let's say approximately 4,000 pixels to go from left to right. If you are moving at 4,000 pixels per second, the object is going to take 1 second to go from left to right. So actually, wait, I did the calculation wrong. Wait. Let's think about it again. So for an object to go from left to right and take 1 second to cover a screen width, okay, in a 4K screen, you need the object to move at 4,000 pixels per second, okay? So at 4,000 pixels per second, so 1 second to go from left to right in a 4K screen, you need 4,000 hertz, 4,000 frames per second, okay? So that's still 1 second. If you can eye track an object that moves twice as fast, then you need 8,000 frames per second. And if you can eye track an object that moves twice as fast, you need 16,000 frames per second, 16,000 hertz. So on a 4K screen, for you to be able to have 1 pixel of motion blur at your maximum eye tracking speed, which could be, you can eye track an object that takes 0.25 seconds to go from left to right. So a quarter of a second to go from left to right. I think I can eye track that. So for me to be able to see 1 pixel of motion blur, meaning the UFO test has clear pupils. The pupils look clear, not blurry. At that speed, like this, in a 4K screen, I need 16,000 frames per second, 16,000 hertz. That's nuts. But I believe I could be able to tell the difference between 8,000 frames per second, 8,000 hertz, and 16,000. I believe I could. Maybe I'm not going to be able to. But if I can eye track the UFO test that fast, I should be able to tell the difference, because I would just focus on the alien eyes. And if the alien eyes are blurry, moving at that speed, then if I double the hertz, then they should look clear. So yeah, 480 hertz, yeah, definitely you can tell that difference and more. No issue. Yeah, the thing with CRTs, the issue is that CRTs are very small. So with a small screen size, to cover a screen width is very fast. So the object moves on screen very fast, also because the resolution is low. So the CRT that I have has almost perfect motion for my maximum eye tracking speed because the screen is too small and the resolution. So if it gets better emotion, I would not be able to notice the difference because at my maximum eye tracking speed, I can see the alien eyes, the pupils, I can see them clear. And faster, there is a speed I cannot even eye track that speed. So in that case, I would call it perfect. So basically, I would say that the display has the ideal refresh rate for me if I can no longer notice the alien eyes of the UFO test. I can no longer follow it to see that they are blurry. It's just so fast I cannot even follow. So then I would say, okay, at my maximum eye tracking speed, it looks perfect. So having more hertz doesn't make any difference for me. But maybe I would see the difference for objects that I'm not eye tracking, like what you were explaining on the peripheral view. So when you're focused on something else, the peripheral, I might be able to see that difference. Or maybe, of course, with kilohertz, you reduce the stroboscopic effects of finite refresh rates. So you get closer to a retina display. You need persistence way below 1 milliseconds for perfect motion clarity at high motion speeds. Yeah, it's all about the speed. If you move slow enough, every display could look perfect. I mean, even at 60 hertz office monitor, if you move at 60 pixels per second, it looks clear, unless the gray to gray is so trash that that you see artifacts and stuff. But it's very unlikely at such a low speed. But the more you increase the speed, the higher frame rate and hertz you need for sample on hold, or you just need a lower persistence. So people are saying that the ViewSonic 520 hertz OLED will have rolling scan BFI like the C1. That would be insane. Okay, so it's a ViewSonic, and that might be the QD OLED that I was talking about. It might not be Philips, it might be the ViewSonic. I don't remember. But yeah, I think Blur Busters worked with ViewSonic on that LCD that had very good motion. So I would not be surprised at all if the Blur Busters chief worked with this monitor company again. Then I would not be surprised at all, and it might be awesome. So yeah, I might want to start emailing these monitor companies to see if I can get some review samples. What text source on this, and what the new QD OLED 520 hertz 1440p? Yeah, it's QD OLED. On the C160 BFI high, the flickering is very, very noticeable. Yeah, I can see the flickering, but at 100 and 120, I cannot see it. It was ready, so take with grain of salt. Yes, 1440p, 6000 FPS. Yeah, 120, 1 millisecond would be great. That's for sure. Hardware frame generation from a very high base FPS can take us to retina frame rates. Interpolation gets nearly lossless when you have such a small motion gaps. I am more looking forward to asynchronous reprojection because asynchronous reprojection will give you better input lag, and no matter what the frame rate you have, you can get all the frames delivered to display. And the only difference if you have a higher frame rate would be less interpolation artifacts. So maybe NVIDIA is going to come out with a combination between frame generation and asynchronous reprojection with AI to remove the artifacts. That might be coming soon. Yeah, frame gen. Thank you very much, Cody. I think 520 hertz OLED by ViewSonic has to have rolling scan BFI. Otherwise, how would they achieve 1 millisecond of MPRT like they are claiming? Also, they are claiming 1 millisecond. Yeah, but remember that these monitor companies, sometimes they throw around that 1 millisecond, and even they say sometimes they're talking about the responsiveness, sometimes they're talking about the motion, and it's a lie. Well, I made a video about that, showing some monitors claiming 1 millisecond MPRT, and of course it's obviously not true. But yeah, I mean, it's not great if it's only 1 millisecond. They are just doubling the clarity. I mean, if you're getting 520 FPS, they better give me better than at least VR headset level of clarity, like 0.25 millisecond of persistence. Because to get 520 frames per second, you need to sacrifice a lot of quality on the game, a lot of pixels and overall quality. I like BFI for content that is hard coded for 60 FPS. It is a game changer for that. Yeah, this is gonna be good, man. So let me see if I can. We've been almost 2 hours and I haven't read the thing I wanted to read. Let me see how many comments we have after this. Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, actually, I can read them. Let me read these comments and then I will. It's actually a lot. Okay. Let me go faster. Maybe if I can recover some brightness by not insert a black frame, but just dim a copy of the last frame. No, I don't think so. You see, plasma technology is interesting. I mean, what you're saying is not totally out of what could be possible or maybe work. I don't know, because plasmas, they advertise, back in the day, 600 hertz, and some of them even more. But for 600 hertz, what they mean is you get 10 flashes per frame. So each of the 60 frames is flashing 10 times. Out of those 10 flashes, 2 or 3 of them are significantly brighter than the rest. And the rest of the flashes are weird. They have different colors. So the technology is using dithering to produce the final image is something very unique. Plasma is a unique technology. And to your point, plasmas look better in motion, and those flashes are not necessarily black. Some of them are dimmer. 7 or 8 of them are significantly dimmer than those 2 or 3, but they have something. It's not completely black. So to your point, maybe one day maybe they could do a plasma simulation. But the thing is, a CRT simulation like this is going to give you better motion. So I don't think there's a reason to emulate plasmas, because it is not improving the motion too much. It's basically multiplying the clarity by 4. So plasmas at 60 FPS can have 4 milliseconds of persistence, but they have some gray-to-gray limitation. So when you move faster than 240 pixels per second with a UFO test, the motion doesn't look as good as a 240 display. And I tested that with my C1 120 OLED Motion Pro Medium. Looks like 240. It doesn't look even close to that with a plasma, and it's because of other limitations. But at 240 pixels per second, it looks perfectly clear. So yeah, plasma is very interesting. So yeah, to your point, that might not be completely. That might work a little bit. I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't believe so, but that might work. That's kind of what a plasma does. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you're talking about that here. Yeah. Well, thanks for the explanation. That I didn't see your comment before answering that, but yeah, you're saying the same thing. Yeah, that's kind of what plasma do. They flash 10 images, most of which are dim. I think 2 or 3 of those frames are flashed very bright. So we have a lot of bright people here on the stream today. Flash 10 images per frame. I mean, yeah. I've got 120 hertz LG C2. Wondering if I can even try this. Yes, you can. It works for all displays. It's just not going to give you, from what we've been discussing, it might not give you lower than 8 milliseconds of persistence, but it's gonna be better than the BFI LG implemented because it might have less flickering. I am a freak. I love film grain for the atmosphere. KM, just go out of here. Go out of the stream. I'm gonna ban you. Yeah, of course you can like it, man. It's okay. I think you're wrong. If they want to add grain, they should go extreme. This is just annoying. I'm one of those purists, and it is not because we don't want things to change, but because 60p plus looks fake. Movies are not necessarily aiming to emulate real life. It's okay. I mean, clearly the movie industry agrees with you. Actually, one day I spoke with a director of a documentary. It's like a small creator, of course. It was not from Hollywood or anything like that. And I explained him motion clarity, and I told him you should definitely shoot your documentary. It was a historic documentary at 120. Why? Because that is unique. Like you don't see that a lot, and there's a lot of enthusiasts that are going to want to watch your documentary just because it is 120 frames. And I explained him why that would be better and how much more he would be able to show with that high frame rate. Because he was actually dressing people up and doing shots and stuff. It was just not only like showing historic papers and it's like static pictures. So he was trying to do some more complex stuff, and I'm like, 120 FPS, you pan the camera, it's gonna be so much better. People can see better. You can do more. You don't have to follow the rules of Hollywood that you can only move the camera this fast and stuff. You can go faster and show the action better. So yeah, I wish I had the chance to speak with more movie directors just to tell them you're wrong with a 24 FPS crap. It depends on how it's implemented on the film. Yeah, I think it doesn't depend. It's always bad. Control and Alan Wake. You like that too, bro? I think Control and Alan Wake look so bad, man. Holy, these are so blurry, man. These 2 games are a mess, total mess. And you know what? In Alan Wake, if you turn off film grain, you can actually see more of the color banding and all the mess. So that's probably why they added that. It just looks so bad, in my opinion. So yeah, 24 FPS doesn't look okay. Then first you say that 60 FPS looks fake, and then you say that movies don't necessarily look like real life. 24p is a matter of habit, something that has become almost a religion. Exactly, man. That's wrong. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Starfield. Look at the games you're liking, bro. You're liking the worst looking games. Control, Alan Wake, Starfield. All those games look bad, bro. It just look terrible. Why would you like that? I'd say 60 FPS is more realistic than 24 because real life does not have sample and hold blur. Less sample and hold blur will always be more realistic. Of course. Looking believable is not the same as emulating real life. Our brains are complicated. We have more easily immersed into low frame rate content, as studies show. Well, those are all studies, man. These are wrong. Totally wrong. 24p movies make me fully turn on. Try motion, turn on through motion, which works good but introduces unnecessary artifacts. Yeah. I am fine if the directory is fully aware of 24 FPS limitations, is comfortable to watch. They avoid a smooth camera panning. Yeah, but the thing is, I've been watching some movies on Netflix. At the very beginning of the movie, it's like moving the camera up and down. It's like they don't know that they are filming at 24 frames per second with those camera pannings that they are doing. It's crazy. Like, it's a showcase of stuttering, the beginning of the movie. It's just absolutely insane. It's like, bro, you need to know, if you're filming at 24 frames per second, you have to do this very slowly. You cannot do this, pan the camera like that. It's just terrible. Is it possible to LG C4G4 to get 144 BFI in the future? No, because they don't have the hardware for that. Yeah, they need hardware. They could add 60 BFI, and even 72 BFI if they could change. Yeah, I think they could. It would be technically possible, but yeah, more than that. Of course, there's blur in real life from eye tracking and eye focus blur, but 24 FPS blur is nothing like those. The problem, I think, is that at high frame rates, it is too much information, and we're not used to it. Plus, in movies, you see more glitches at higher frame rates. Pixar movie, high frame rate will be accepted by the public because people are used to high frame rate cutscenes in games. Exactly. I think at the very least, the CGI movies should be high frame rate, like games, and it looks so much better. Another thing you might hate, Ariel. Someone mentioned this earlier. When we get to thousands of frames, you'll actually start seeing motion blur again, as we do in real life with fast objects. The thing is, in real life, if there is a car coming and I follow the car, it doesn't look blurry. The background, which I'm not focused on, might look blurry. The problem I see is when we are using a display and we actually eye track something and it looks very blurry, or something looks choppy. That's what I would like to be eliminated. It's like, for example, when I tried the VR headset, I'm like, motion here looks so good, man. It's like, wow. But I'm wondering, how can I know that the motion is good when I am eye tracking if the object is actually not moving on the headset? Because I'm doing this and I'm eye tracking the object because I'm moving my head, but the object on screen is not moving at all. So how do I know that the motion is good? So of course, if I look at the peripheral view or something else, I might see the clarity, but I don't know. I have to think about that. I don't understand how. Merry Christmas, Plasma TV for gaming. I hope you saw that video about the Sony PVM 4300 that came out this week. I didn't. I don't know anything about it. But if it's Sony and it's PVM, it has to be very expensive. Oh, you mean the... Oh, yeah, I saw it. The 43-inch CRT. Yeah, I saw that video. It was a fantastic video, man. Wow. So much work on that video. This guy wanted to hunt the biggest CRT ever created. The only thing I don't like about that CRT is that it's way too old. It's like from before 1990. It was like 1980. 88 or something like that. I don't remember, but it was way too old. So he was hunting for it, and he found it in a picture on Japan or something like that. And he was skeptical, and he kept trying to dig into it, and he finally contacted someone in Japan that went. It was a restaurant, an old restaurant. Imagine this TV is a 43-inch CRT that weighs over 400 pounds. So you need like 6 people to move that thing around. So this restaurant was just giving it away. Just get this thing out of here. They didn't want to, or I mean, they didn't want to pay to throw it out or something because it had some value for them. They wanted for someone else that was going to take care of it to have it. But the building was going to be demolished. So this guy in the US needed to get the CRT out of there and deliver that to the US before the building was set for demolition. And you can only imagine how much money that cost just to move 400 pounds from Japan to the US. You need to pay, a lot to many people. So yeah, at the end he figured it out, and he has it on his garage. The TV had a bunch of issues, and he kind of figured it out, but it's still not perfect. And yeah, it's 400 pounds, and he's the only one in the world probably. But yeah, a very, very cool video. I like it. But eye tracking is almost everything. Yeah. Your eyes darting around like crazy 24/7. You can only eye track from one side of the display to the other. Then your eyes have to reset. Something moved too fast, you cannot eye track it. It depends on the content. 2D platforms have a lot of eye tracking because it is smoothly scrolling all the time. I am grateful for this shader giving Plasma TV motion clarity for 60 FPS games on 240 Hz monitors. Thanks for covering it. It's gonna be better than Plasma. If you have an OLED, it's gonna be much better than Plasma for 60 FPS. I tried the LG 27-inch. The reason why I say it's gonna be better than Plasma is because of Plasmas have gray to gray limitations. So for fast-moving objects, it doesn't look like 4 milliseconds of persistence. So it's not 4 pixels of motion blur when moving at 1,000 pixels per second because of other limitations. But with an OLED, with this technology, it should be. So that's why it's gonna be much better. I tried the LG 27-inch OLED MLA Plus monitor, and it was terrible with issues like near black crushing. I switched to Gigabyte QD OLED, and now I feel like I am in heaven. Yeah, a lot of these monitors have very bad calibration. But when you have the monitor brand new, it is normal that it's crushing blacks a little bit. Okay, so let me see if I can. Man, we're getting so much comments. Let me see if I can finally. Well, let me do this. I'm gonna try to. It's 2 hours already, and I didn't read the the article. So let me do that, man. Let me see. What I want to read is this. This it's not an article. It's like the actual. How can you say the actual code? The is open source. This open source algorithm, and the interesting thing is that it is explained. It has a lot of explanation here. So let's see if I can figure out the answer to my questions. So my questions are: how is this possible? What is the breakthrough? Why are we able to do this now? Is it because of this gamma correction algorithm? I want to know if somehow this algorithm can give you better motion than the maximum refresh rate of your display. I don't believe so, but there is a dynamic component that allows you to trade off brightness for motion. That might be just going in the direction of more brightness and less motion than your maximum refresh rate, most likely, but I want to see if I can get lower persistence than the maximum refresh rate. I don't believe so, but I don't know. This is a major breakthrough, so I want to figure out if that's possible. So let's see. Let me go through this this thing from Blurbusters Area 51 Display Science Research and Engineering. Area 51. That's so cool. The world's first real-time blur reducing CRT simulator. Best for 60 FPS on 240 to 480 Hertz plus displays. Still works in 120 Hertz plus displays. Let's see. Credit. Teamwork of Mark Rejhon, that's the Blurbusters chief, and Timothy Lottes, I don't know how to pronounce that, gamma corrected CRT simulator in a shader using clever formula by a scanline trick. Easily can generate LUTs for other workflows like FPGAs or JavaScript. So Timothy Lottes provided the algorithm for per pixel BFI, variable MPRT, so variable pixel visibility time, higher MPRT for bright pixels. And Blurbusters provided the algorithm for CRT electron beam, which was publicly released in 2022 for the first time. Okay, so that's the team. That's how they team up for this. So then they say, contact Blurbusters for help integrating this in your product. Emulator, FPGA, filter, display firmware, video processor. So basically, they are making this open source. It is free. And not only that, they are saying, if you need help implementing this, we will help you. No matter what, if it's for an emulator, a filter like reshade, a display firmware, or a video processor. This is like unbelievable. They are making it free and they will help people implement this thing. Just amazing. Let's see. This new algorithm has multiple breakthroughs. Let's read through the breakthroughs and try to understand this. Seamless, no banding. So, no banding, I guess they are referring to color banding. You know what color banding is? Basically, when you don't see a smooth transition of colors. So you see bands of colors. So they're saying that this technology has no banding. I guess that's what they are referring to. So they are saying here that this is for SDR. So the configuration on the OS and the monitor is HDR off, gamma 2.4. I don't know why. And ABL off, APL off, and HDR off. So okay, we know that's not possible in OLEDs, but ideally, they are saying that the best would be to not have ABL. Of course, that would be the best regardless, but that's not possible with OLEDs. So yeah, that's where we are with that part. So the other breakthrough is, by the way, let me say this before we go to the next one. I believe today, if there is a reshade shader to implement this, we would be able to get HDR working with this using Major Paint the Cactus add-on with Lilium's inverse tone mapping or Pumbo Advanced Auto HDR shader. And the reason is reshade works by order of the shaders. So if you have the first shader is this one to do the algorithm to improve the motion. Then next to that, you do the tone mapping for HDR, it's gonna work. I don't think it's gonna be a problem because this is just working on with SDR as a base. So I believe it should work. It should be awesome. I don't think it's gonna be a problem. The performance penalty might not be very high because there is a well, let's keep reading. Let's not speculate something I don't know yet. So then the next one, the next breakthrough. So we're reading the breakthroughs. So what I want to know is what changed? What is that they discover that they can do this now and not before? Because the Blurbuster's chief understands motion and understands how to do this CRT emulation, like technically, from a very long time ago. And why now? Why is that now this is possible? What changed? What was the breakthrough? So phosphor fade behind simulation in rolling scan. So they are trying to simulate the phosphorus decay of a CRT. So this is not going to be a square wave. So what that means is, imagine a square wave is this. You have this. So these pulses are super bright and then off completely. There's no smoothness. It's not like a mountain. If you have a mountain, it's smoother. So when you have a square wave, if the hertz are high enough and you don't notice the flickering, a square wave with a high enough frame rate and hertz is actually going to be more clean. The motion is going to be more clean because you're not going to see the trailing artifacts. But the problem is the flickering becomes more noticeable at lower frame rates. So with this, they are simulating the rolling scan of a CRT, which has this phosphorus decay, the trailing, the fading of the phosphorus. And what that is good for, because that reduces the flickering perception. So when we look at here, see if you can see this on the video. You see this? This is a CRT being simulated, a slow motion 16:1. So you see this is brighter here at the bottom, and it fades in. So this is like a gamma calculation. It's like to make this over brighten, and then this becomes darker. So that is what the CRTs do. So the smaller that is, the better the motion clarity. So the shorter the pulse, the better the motion clarity. But to get this short, we need, in this case, we need 960 hertz. So this is an emulation, but that's the idea. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to do here. So then this works for LCDs and OLEDs, okay? Of course, OLEDs are going to be better for this technology, but it works for LCDs too. Variable per pixel MPRT spreads brighter pixels over more refresh cycles than dimmer pixels. So what that means, spreading out the bright pixels means to have more dark pixels. So to have it, the bigger the black, the darkness, the better the motion. So the smaller the bright pixels, the more you can spread out the bright pixels, the better the motion, because you are reducing the bright pixels visibility time. Okay, that's how you improve motion. Now, here's something very interesting about this technology. No integer divisor requirement. Recommended, but not necessary. Example, 60 FPS at 144 hertz works. And I can actually test that right now. Here on this example, look, in this example, I have 144 frames per second. Let me make this full screen. And it works. Like, I see no stuttering, no choppiness, nothing. This is 144 frames per second. I have 144 hertz. And this is 60 FPS. But well, here at the top, it's 60 FPS, 120 hertz. But here at the bottom, it says 144 FPS. So I'm not 100% sure, but I have 144 hertz right now on my display. And this looks more clear. And I don't see any jumpiness. So it works at 144 hertz. You don't need, let me get this out of the way so you don't get a headache looking at this. So basically, you don't need perfect integers. So you don't need 60 FPS, then 120 hertz. You can have 144 hertz, 60 FPS, and it works. So that's great. I don't know how they're figuring that out, but it works, and that's great. So if let's say you have a refresh rate in your display that's like a weird one, then it might work no matter what. So then gain adjustment. Look, this is the part where I get excited, in this one specifically. Gain adjustment, parentheses, less motion blur at lower gain values by trading off brightness. Tell me more about it. I want to keep reading I want to know more about that, because that's the part that makes me think, well, if I can adjust the gain, can I make it darker and get better motion? What's the limit? Most likely the limit is going to be the persistence of your display. 120 hertz, 8 milliseconds of persistence, you cannot get better than that. And that is going to be the limit of how dark you can make it look to get more motion clarity. So, and that makes sense, especially if you have a 480 hertz OLED, 480 hertz, 2 milliseconds of persistence. That's it's awesome. Well, maybe you would be okay with getting a little bit more brightness and losing a little bit of motion clarity with this gain adjustment. But you wouldn't be able to lower the brightness even more to get less than 2 milliseconds of persistence. That's most likely going to be the case, but I'm still hopeful. Can this technology somehow improve the motion clarity beyond the maximum refresh rate? I don't believe so, but it would be so insane if that's possible, because that's like breaking the rules, like bending reality. It would be just insane. Real-time for retro and emulator uses, and a slow-mo modes for educational purposes. Great for software 60 hertz motion blur reduction, less eye strain than classic 60 BFI on strobe. Algorithm can be ported to shader and or emulator and or FPGA and or display firmware. So this technology can be used by reshade. We can get a reshade. It's right here, okay? And they are telling you, if you are a developer and you do reshade stuff, you can reach out to them and they will help you get this working on reshade. So we can play games with this technology on any OLED, on any LCD. This is huge. So it works for emulators and also for display firmware. It'll be awesome too if the display can natively have this technology. So we don't need to. So it works for the consoles, for example. It works for console gaming too. So now, important display requirements for this to work. Best for gaming LCD or OLED monitors with fast pixel response. Of course, OLEDs are the best that we have right now. Of course, micro LED is even better, but we don't have access to that. So more hertz per simulated CRT is better. So 240 hertz, 480 hertz simulates 60 hertz tubes more accurately than 120. So yeah, what I have is 120, 144. I will give it a try. Hopefully the TVs become 240 and beyond. But yeah, unless a company sends me a monitor to review, I'm not buying a monitor, because the screen size and HDR is also important. So, but yeah, I would like to see this on a 480 hertz OLED. It's gonna be, it should be awesome. OLED SDR mode looks better than LCD, but still works on LCD. May have minor banding with very low gray to gray, asymmetric gray to gray VA LCDs, or excessively overdriven. So you might have some color banding if the gray to gray of the display is not very fast. And this is designed for sample and hold displays with excess refresh rate, LCDs and OLEDs, not intended for use with a strobe or impulse displays. Please turn off BFI or strobing. This is because we need 100% software control of the flicker algorithm to simulate CRT beams. So you cannot use a plasma TV with this technology. This is only for sample and hold displays. And if you have a display with a strobing, you have to turn that off, basically. SDR mode recommended for now due to predictable gamma compensation math. So it seems like the algorithm that they are using, when they say predictable, it's like, HDR, you have a native HDR game, you don't know if it's 1,000 nits, 10,000 nits, or whatever the developers decided to do. So if you have a calculation, then you would need to first figure out what the game is doing to, it's like it becomes a mess. But that might happen in the future. In the future, they might figure out how to make this work with HDR. But like I said, for now, I believe major paint the cactus with reshade should work because it's based on SDR. Best results occur on display configured to standard SDR gamma curve and ABL, APL disable to go 100% band free. So it seems like they are concerned about color banding due to ABL or APL. So APL means average picture level. So what happens with these displays is when the average pixel level, picture level goes up, the average brightness limit level, the ABL kicks in, and you get less brightness. So there is a tone mapping happening on the display to reduce the brightness and keep everything looking correct when the window size is brighter and it's bigger. So that might cause some color banding with this algorithm, although they were saying that you don't get color banding. So maybe they are saying you don't get color banding if you have no ABL, and we know so far that's not possible. So we will get ABL for sure. There's no way to turn that off. Please set your display gamma to 2.2 or 2.4. Turn off ABL, APL in display settings. We don't have that setting, unfortunately. That doesn't exist. And set your OLED to SDR mode. Yeah, I'm surprised that they are specifying this, but maybe they are specifying this for display, manufacturers. It's not for us. It's like telling the display manufacturers, hey, you have to turn off ABL. So maybe if we get a new OLED, monitor that comes with this technology integrated, maybe when you turn on this technology, the display will actually turn off the ABL. And that makes sense because when you're using this technology, actually, look, the full screen most of the screen is black. So you don't need to have an ABL tone mapping algorithm engaged at all. Why would you do that? Look at what we're doing here. Of course, the pulse is going to be a lot bigger with a lower refresh rate. This is for 960. But doing this should also protect from burning because the pixels are turning on and off. So image retention, I believe, is going to be less likely to happen. So it makes sense to turn ABL off. And that's what they recommend, basically. And SDR will not work well with some fold and mini LED due to backlight lag behind effects. So that's what someone was saying, that this technology might not work well and with mini LED and stuff, because the mini LED has like a very complex algorithm to manipulate the backlight for the dimming zones and all of that. So that might cause, they might lag behind with this technology. So need future API access to OLED ABL ABL algorithm to compensate for OLED ABL APL windowing interference with algorithm. So yeah, I like that they are telling the display manufacturers here, or the recommendation is, if you're going to implement this technology in your monitor, you need to actually turn that crap off. Okay, I wish we had displays that were a lot more power hungry, like 1000 watts. I don't care. Turn off ABL and let it burn in. I don't care. If it lasts 2 years, that's fine. I don't care. This code is heavily commented because of the complexity of the algorithm. Okay, so let's read the code. This is gonna be wild. I don't know what to expect. It's gonna be very complex. Let me check your comments. Let me see. Let me check your comments here, and then we'll keep reading. We're 2 hours and a half. Oh, actually, I have to change the microphone. Wait. Here's the thing. I've been using for this live stream my microphone, my $1,300 reference microphone. And the thing is, my phone is powering the audio interface so the microphone works. So I have to power my phone because it's at 13% of battery. So let me see if this works and if I don't have to finish the stream. So I'm gonna shut off the audio and see if I can come back. If I cannot, then we'll finish the stream. We've been 2 hours and a half. So let's see if this works. You might not be able to hear me now. Oops. That's what I thought. This is the audio interface. The audio interface, the cable, USB-C cable. Okay, can you hear me? Let me see. Let me go back to the. Can you hear me? See if you can hear me. Let me see. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm checking the settings. Oh no, I have to change this. Let me know if you can hear me now. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I changed the settings to the phone now. Let me get this out of the way. Yeah, I knew I was gonna run out of battery. I mean, my phone is a beast. 2 hours and a half powering an audio interface with a reference microphone. That's crazy. With a condenser microphone. That's just crazy. 2 hours and a half. No overheating, nothing. It's just crazy. And you have these DSLR cameras that overheat in like 30 minutes, and they cost a lot of money. That's crazy. Okay, so we have a lot of comments. Let me keep reading the article. I'll try to go back to your comments when I finish here. Let's see what else we can get away from this. See if I can get my questions answered. Okay, so copyright. So now they explain the copyright, basically saying that they give permission to use this free of charge, and you can actually, basically do whatever you want with it. Just don't sue us if you have an issue. We're giving it away for free, something like that. So we're not reading that part. So now the difficult and advanced part comes. And they are, let me see if I can understand something about this. So I see the word gamma, LCD anti-retention toggle. By the way, one thing I have to say about software BFI. Let me move this thing. Oh, me. The one thing I have to say about software BFI and LCD displays is that there are some LCD displays that are at risk of burning when you use software BFI. And the Blurbusters chief actually sent me a link to an article a long time ago, so I could read about that, understand that. And it's something very very complex. I mean, I don't remember well. I'm trying to. Let me get some comfort here because I move everything around here. Okay. So some LCD displays have issues with software BFI, and it has to do with the polarity or something like that. Basically, if they are always displaying a black frame in the positive or negative polarity thing, and then the frames in the other one, then it was likely to burn because it was not balancing out or something like that. It's like it always goes on the positive or on the negative side or something like that. And then the other one is a black frame. It could make it burning could become an issue. That's not an issue for all LCD-based displays, but there is something about that I forgot. I read the article. It was very complex, and I don't remember the explanation. So here on the code, there is something about that LCD anti-retention toggle. So maybe the LCD displays have something for that. So then brightness versus motion blur trade-off for bright pixel. De facto simulates fast, slow phosphor. One is unchanged brightness, same as non-CRT, but no blur reduction for brightest pixel. Only for dimmer pixels. Okay, so yeah, the blur reduction comes from the dimmer pixels. So you're reducing the brightness and the pixel visibility time. So 0.5 is half brightness spread over fewer frames, creates lower MPRT persistence for darker pixels. 0.7 recommended for 240 Hertz plus, 0.5 recommended for 120 Hertz due to limited Hertz ratio. Okay, so basically the fading can be, from what I can understand here, the fading effect, it is potentially going to be more progressive with some more softer, let's say, with the higher refresh rate displays that with 120. So because they're recommending 0.7, so it'll be 0.7, then less. I don't know. That's what I understand from this. I'm just trying to see if I can understand something from this thing. Your display's gamma value necessary to prevent horizontal bands artifacts. Gamma 2.4. Define gamma errands. Reduce frame rate mode. This can be helpful to see individual CRT simulated frames better. educational. 1 is frame rate hertz, 0.5 is frame rate being half of hertz, 0.1. Okay, let's see if we can get something else out of this. More about LCD anti-retention. Yeah, I think from here there is not a lot more I can understand. I didn't read this before the stream. I'm reading it right now. Play with the documented constants. Real time, use frames per hertz equal 4 for 240 hertz, and frames per hertz equal 8 for 480 hertz. So frames per hertz. Huh. Frames per hertz. So think about that, frames per hertz. So the thing is, if you have 120 hertz or 240, we're talking about 240 hertz, and you have 60 FPS, how is this working? Is it actually sending 4 different frames per? So let's say if you have 60 FPS, 60 hertz, you have 60 frames in 1 second. Maybe this algorithm, instead of sending 1 frame, the display, because the display has the potential to refresh 240 frames in 1 second instead of 60. Maybe each of those 60 frames, so your GPU is rendering 60 FPS. You have 60 FPS, but your display can actually refresh 240. And with this algorithm, maybe they are going to use that same frame, so 1 out of 60, each of those 60 frames, they are going to make 4 versions of the same frame. And those 4 versions are going to be like doing the rolling scan. It's going to be like, the first one would be like this section of the frame. So it's going to show you this section of the frame. Then the next one will show you this section of the frame. But it's actually the same frame. We just need to see that single frame like that. So that same, let's say we have the same frame, but those 4 frames are actually just showing you. It's like unveiling the same frame this way. This section of the frame, then the next section of the frame. So the third frame will be like this, and then the last frame will show you the bottom. So your GPU is rendering that single frame, but this algorithm is delivering to the display 4 frames. That's what I think is happening. And then the thing is that those 4 frames look like a CRT, like that. They are actually like doing this. This is the thing. So imagine, I think this is what's going on. Imagine this. You see, now here we have a lot more. See what? Let's count, actually. Let's count. We should have 16 here. Let's count from the beginning when it starts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Maybe I counted wrong, but it should be 16. Okay. Or maybe it's more because I have 144 FPS. But I believe this is what's happening. You have 60 FPS, 240 hertz. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next frame. So the same frame is show like 4 versions, like the display is displaying 4 versions of the same frame. And the value of this new algorithm is to calculate the gamma. So you see that this is brighter and then it fades in to calculate that gamma, to simulate the way the CRT looks. I believe that's what's going on. Let's see what else we can see, because it says use 4 for 60 FPS at 240 Hertz real time. Use 2.4 for 60 FPS at 144 Hertz real time. Oh, wait. This is good news here. So I can tell you this for sure. We can get with this algorithm. This is one thing I can almost tell you for sure. With this algorithm, we can make 60 FPS look like 144, not only like 120. So if you have a 144 Hertz, because here there is a ratio for this algorithm that they're saying use the ratio 2.4 for 60 FPS at 144 Hertz real time. So most likely you can get the 144 Hertz motion clarity at 60 FPS. That would be awesome. I believe that's that's the case based on this. Let's see what else we can get out of this. Maybe, I'm not sure of that. I'm not sure about that. Because it says use 100 for super slow motion. Best to keep it integer divisor, but not essential. And it has in between brackets works. So non-integer divisors work. Frames per hertz. Parameters, total subframes. Automating this to work with whatever the user's subframe setting is. This is amazing. Let's see if we can get something else out of this paper. So there is a split screen to compare to non-CRT. So basically, if we get a reshade shader, we might have an option to have a split screen, so we can see how it looks, without it and with it. Like we have on these examples here, we might have that option. Like here, you're gonna see half of the screen is with the effect, and the other half is without it. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see if there's something else we can get from here. We are halfway through the article. It's not an article, it's like the code. We are reading the code, bro. Again, LCD saver system prevents image retention from BFI interfering with LCD voltage polarity inversion algorithm when LCD anti-retention is enabled. You see, that's what I was talking about. The chief told me there are some LCDs that have challenges with software BFI because of the polarity thing. If you always have the black frame in one of the polarities all the time, you might burn in the display. But they're saying that's not a problem with this algorithm because they are doing things to prevent that issue from happening, maybe, from what I see. Scientific reason, and they list an article. BFI interaction with LCD voltage polarity. That's probably the article that the chief sent me to read. CRT scan direction can be useful to counteract an OS rotation of your display. I don't see anything. Clamp pixel. sRGB encoding and decoding functions to gamma, correct, incorrect. Encode linear color to sRGB, applies gamma curve. So this is the code, bro. This is crazy. Like, of course, I don't understand what that is. None of this. Decode sRGB color to linear, encodes gamma curve. So basically, the code has explanations. It's explaining you what the code is doing. Okay, get pixels from the unprocessed frame buffer. Placeholder for accessing the 3 trailing uncompressed frames. 3 trailing uncompressed frames for simulating CRT on. Frame counter represents simulated CRT refresh cycle number. Always assign numbers to your refresh rate. For reliability, keep a 3-frame trailing buffer. We index by frame counter because it is necessary for blending adjacent CRT refresh cycles. For the phosphorus fade algorithm, on old frame at bottom and new frames at top. Frame buffer to retrieve from should be on scale, original game resolution or emulator resolution. If you do optional additional processing such as scaling, scan lines, mask, do it post-processing after this stage. Demo version. We cheat by horizontally shifted pixels read from a texture. Yeah, so I don't know what to take away from none of that. Put your own code to retrieve pixels from your series of uncompressed frame buffers. Important for integration into firmware software emulators games. This must be executed at refresh cycle granularity independently of your underlying game's frame rate. So this part is important for integration into firmware software emulators games. This must be executed at refresh cycle granularity independently of your underlying game's frame rate. That's very important. So basically, like you're getting 60 FPS, it doesn't matter. This thing is going for your hertz, your 240 hertz. Not you're getting 60. It's not like V-Sync, G-Sync, like you have 60 FPS and then you have 60 hertz, and the algorithm is not working at 60 hertz. This algorithm is working at your higher refresh rate. There are 3 independent frequencies involved. Native hertz, your actual physical display. Simulated CRT hertz, hertz of simulated CRT2. Underlying content frame. This shader doesn't need to know. Okay, so this shader doesn't care about your content frame rate to do unless you plan to simulate VRR CRT. Huh. So basically, this shader doesn't care, doesn't need to know what your frame rate is. It just cares about your native hertz, your actual physical display hertz, or the hertz you're simulating, simulated CRT hertz. So maybe, of course, if you have a 480 hertz, maybe you can select this to work at 240, like have 240 hertz as a target instead of your 480. Maybe that's what it is. It doesn't have to necessarily be that high. I don't know what benefit would that give you. Maybe it's not gonna be a brightness benefit because you can always change the the gain of this effect. I'm trying to read, see if there's anything else I can. Disabling this, since we'll be providing your own blurry motion. CRT rolling scan simulation with phosphor fade plus brightness redistribution algorithm. New variable per pixel MPRT algorithm that mimics CRT phosphorus decay too. We emit as many photons as possible, as early as possible, and if we can't emit it at all, example RGB 255, then we continue emitting in the next refresh cycle until we have hit our target, gamma compensated. This is a clever trick to keep CRT simulation brighter, but still benefit motion clarity of most colors. Besides, real CRT tubes behave roughly similar too. Overexcited phosphor take longer to decay. This also concurrently produces a phosphor fade style behavior. Win-win. So this is interesting here. It is like, it says, we emit as many photons as possible as early as possible, and if we can't emit it all, example RGB 255. So you know RGB we have from 0 to 255. It said that if it cannot emit it all, then we continue emitting in the next refresh cycle until we hit our target, gamma compensated. So it is something like, what's the name of this thing? Asynchronous shaders, something like that. Like you don't need to wait until the shader is compiled. You are compiling it on the fly. I think it's a similar idea. If the target gamma is not ready, it just keeps going, and that's fine. And it's like CRTs do the same anyway. So, and that produces a phosphor fade style behavior. So it's a win-win. So it's like an overexcited phosphor take longer to decay. Okay. So let's see if there is something else we can read from here. This is more code. We're getting close to the end. So this doesn't seem to be a very long code. Like they say that the most genius solution is the simplest one. This seems to be very short. But I don't really know exactly what I'm reading here. I'm just trying to figure something else. Let's see. This is all code. I'm trying to look for the explanation of the code, because the code, I don't know what it does. Optimized to use only 2 frames. Unfortunately, I need all 3 right now, because if I only do 2, I get artifacts at either top or bottom edge. Can't eliminate both. What I might do is use a phase offset. Input frame buffer chain. Rotate forward in middle of emulated CRT hertz as a workaround, and I see if that solves the problem and reduces the Q to 2. We'll attempt later. Okay. I don't know what to make of that. Okay, then this is the end. Almost the end. Okay, let's see. CRT beam calculation. Frame counter, which might be compensated by slow-mo modes, FPS divisor. Does not need to be integer divisible. So we know that already. Yeah, nothing else to read. Credits. Please credit Blurbusters and Timothy Lottes if this algorithm is used in your project product. Hundreds of hours of research was done on related work that led to this algorithm. So it seems to be something very, very short, actually, which is, I mean, this should be, I think we're going to have a reshape very soon, man. We're soon going to have this on our displays. So let's leave it there. 3 hours already. See what you guys say. Read some of the comments before we finish. But yeah, this is very, very interesting. I cannot wait to try this. So if any of you figure out to download this update for the RetroArch before it comes out, let me know, because I've never used this RetroArch before. Let's see what you guys saying. I think Reshape natively cannot add extra refresh cycles. It only affects the native frame rate. Huh. Oh. So there's something that needs to be done at the Windows, at the operating system level or something like that. That's interesting. That's interesting, man. But there has to be a way to overcome that limitation. Or maybe it doesn't have to be Reshape. What about a special K? A special K is more advanced. Maybe they can implement this on a special K. Yeah, some extra programming work required. For me, 60 FPS, 1 millisecond, which is what a CRT had, and we lost, is something I wanted to get back. We will have to wait for 1000 hertz. Yeah, exactly, bro. Now, I don't know how. I don't know how bright. Are you gonna lose brightness? My question is, are you gonna lose more brightness with the higher refresh rate? Probably not. But I don't see how. So basically 120 hertz, 60 FPS, 120 hertz with this technology, would that be brighter than 60 FPS, 240 hertz? Probably not, but I don't see how. Yeah, you will lose brightness. So what I'm saying is, you're going to lose brightness for sure. But what I'm saying is, will you lose more brightness, 60 FPS, 960 hertz, to get that CRT motion? Oh, yeah. Lossless frame generation works, but instead of interpolation, do the BFI. Oh, maybe. Oh, you know what? I'm going to email. I have the contact. Is a hybrid. Hybrid is a developer for lossless scaling. If they add this to lossless scaling, it would be awesome. And that's a program that they actually sell and they make money off of it. So I'm gonna definitely email Hybrid. I'm sure he already knows about this, to see if they can implement this in a lossless scaling. That might be our best hope. Maybe better than Reshape. Although it's not free, but it's like $7, something like that. Yeah, they will be rich if they can implement this into lossless scaling. I mean, I think this is like It's a no-brainer. I mean, the creator is on the lossless Rejhon Discord. What do you mean the creator? Mark Rejhon? Yeah, I know Hybrid didn't make lossless scaling, but he worked, or he's friends of the developer of lossless scaling, because he sent me the code and everything. Don't worry, lossless developer is already aware. Haha. Yeah, they have to. I mean, this is like big news. I hope they get this working. Yeah. Let's see what else you guys commented. You can implement this. Yeah, it will be rich for sure. Special K problem with the special KBFI is it is interleaved into the game's frame rate. It is not independent. Yeah, this needs to be independent. Like I read on the code, like this algorithm doesn't care about the frame rate of the game. It is independent from it. So game frame rate drops, your BFI will flicker. Oh, that might be why this thing doesn't want to be related with the frame rate of the game, so it is more consistent. Yeah. Let me see. I think Rejhon, Casey, we got this. Imagine 240 hertz OLED TVs with 1000 nits of brightness at 25% window size. At 60 hertz with this simulator, you could get 250 nits of brightness with 4 milliseconds of MPRT. Yeah, so yeah, but remember that's like ideal. Based on the Theobald-Plateau's law, if you reduce the persistence 4x, like you're calculating like the maximum brightness you can have, like the minimum brightness loss you will have is 4x. But you could lose a little bit more. But yeah, the math looks right to me. Yeah, 1000 nits and a 25% window is not very far away. Now, even better than that, once we get, for example, 480 hertz, now you don't need 25% window 1000 nits. Now you just need 12.5. So 1000 nits on a 12.5% window is not crazy. Like we could have that right now. So a 480 hertz OLED that is 1000 nits on a 13% window, I mean, that's 250 nits with 2 milliseconds of persistence. I mean, that's, oh no, wait. Because then it would not be 4x, it would be 8x. Yeah, but you get the idea. The potential is there, for sure. The potential is there. Okay, man. I think this is promising. Yeah, man. Unfortunately, 480 hertz to TVs. They should, man. I think 3D can save the day, because for 3D, they care more about motion when they add 3D, because they know with better motion it's just better. So maybe 3D can save the clarity of the TVs. But yeah, for monitors, it's gonna happen for sure. Hopefully, they just do a bigger monitor. If they do, 55, 65-inch monitors, I don't care. I don't know why a monitor has to be small. They could be big. So yeah, let's leave it there, man. We've been on it for 3 hours. I appreciate all you guys being here. And thanks for the support. Thanks to LXOR. Thanks to all of you guys. PAQ. use NF and SF. So yeah, man, thanks for everyone who showed up. Chamber. Yeah, thanks everyone. Let me know. I will stay tuned about any news related to this. I think this is awesome. This is what we want. I mean, I made so many videos trying to speculate if we will ever have like a CRT emulation, technology for any display, monitor, software, whatever. And I even made a video about a post in the Blur Busters about the 980 hertz display to finally get that 1 millisecond of persistence, and I speculated, a way to make 60 FPS look like a CRT on a sample hold display and all of that. So yeah, this is awesome, and I'm sure this has been in the works for a very long time. So yeah, I still don't understand exactly what is the breakthrough, like why this was not possible before. I don't understand if it was just the gamma calculation or what it was, but they did it, and it's free, and everyone can use it. And monitor companies should definitely integrate this. Hopefully, we get it working at reshade if it's possible, lossless scaling. I mean, anything. OLED can't even do VRR without flickering like crazy. But if you have a 4000 hertz OLED, VRR isn't even needed. Okay, well, let's leave it there, man. Thanks, everyone. You have happy holidays. Take care and see you next time. Bye, everyone.